You're watching Beyond Markets. Welcome, I'm Esther, Awoniyi. On today's show, we'll explore ways to drive the youth entrepreneurship agenda in Africa. You can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can follow my Twitter handle too, at Esther O. Awoniyi. Now, the International Labour Organization says youth unemployment challenge in Africa has become a top political priority. Our guest today has just taken up the mantle in an organization that has been at the forefront of driving the youth entrepreneurship agenda on the continent. Ifeyinwa Ogochukwu, CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, joins me to share her plans. Thank you so much, Ifeyinwa. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
On the show today, first of all, I know my other colleagues have probably done this, but this is Beyond Markets, and we get to congratulate you.
Thank you.
On your new post as CEO.
Thank you.
So let's get right to it. Let's start first with, we're talking earlier about the youth unemployment in Africa, and I was making reference to the Bill and Melinda Gates Goalkeepers report for 2018, I believe, that said Africa, by the year 2050, Africa will be home to the biggest youth population in the world. And so many analysts, economists that I have spoken to have told me that, look, for many countries, it's already a ticking time bomb, and they list Nigeria as one of them. There's conversations about, okay, what government is doing by way of policy to support the private sector, because that's where the jobs, we're told, that's where the jobs are going to come from. But from your experience, looking across the continent, what do you see in terms of the body language of African leaders, in terms of how, maybe by way of policy, supporting SMEs, supporting entrepreneurs, and just that appreciation, that awareness that, look, now is the time to act?
I think that it's very heartwarming to see that a lot of African leaders understand clearly that the burgeoning youth population in Africa in the next 2 decades could either be the greatest catastrophe the globe has ever seen or the greatest opportunity. And I believe that they are all vested in ensuring that it's the greatest opportunity. We are constantly attending events convened by African presidents in their various countries that are completely and utterly focused on youth entrepreneurship. So I think that there is that awareness, and they are taking the lead in seeing that the youth entrepreneurship empowerment is prioritized. And that is why the Tony Elumelu Foundation is really seen as a tried and tested model for empowering African entrepreneurs across all 54 African countries. We are the largest private sector-led entrepreneurship program on the continent. We have a $100 million commitment to train 10,000 entrepreneurs in all 54 African countries over 10 years. And we have increasingly seen that governments realize that empowering the entrepreneurs, strengthening the SME sector across Africa is the only way to ensure job creation on the continent. Because
sometimes I get the feeling, I mean, I'll now use Nigeria as an example where, excuse me, it would appear that the government feels that it has to carry that burden, because that's why we get, those, statements, that, X number of million jobs will be created in X number of years over a period. And so one gets a sense that, look, maybe the government still thinks that it's well, so to speak, responsibility to create jobs, but actually does take on that burden full and not giving the private sector enough leeway to actually take the lead in creating those jobs.
I think the government's role is to create the enabling environment. Government isn't in business. Private sector is in business, and that completely supports the philosophy of Africapitalism, which was coined by our founder, Mr. Tony Elumelu. So Africapitalism is the economic philosophy that says that the private sector must take the lead for the economic transformation of Africa. Of course, working hand in hand with government and our international friends, but it is Africans that will develop Africa. We shouldn't think it's up to anyone else. And I believe that governments understand now that their role is to create the enabling environment, to put in place policies that will support and help entrepreneurs who are looking to do business in those respective countries to grow. Take out things like multiple tax systems and things that really stifle the growth of businesses, and then they will see that private sector will do the rest.
I'm happy you mentioned that, because I was going to say let's break this down right to the bottom. When we talk about making the business environment more friendly, creating a more enabling, business environment, as it were, that has been the biggest challenge, a big challenge for Nigeria. You ask the average entrepreneur today, they tell you, oh, my business crashed in the second, third year. It's a very hostile business environment. But we know that from a policy perspective, there are things that the government is doing. The Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council is one of it, PEBEC, and they're working with government MDs to make business, doing business in Nigeria a lot easier, or at least bearable, as it were. But we still find that the mortality rate for many SMEs is still quite high. And because we have new ones coming up every year, it hides the true picture, as it were. I mean, from the foundation's perspective, what is your take on that? And for those who are not, we'll talk about the foundation, but I want to also talk just generally, those who are perhaps not a part of the foundation, what your take is on that, and what recommendations you have, in terms of how we can solve that.
Okay, so from the foundation's point of view, and that is why we say if something is working, then replicate it and scale it. We know that the mortality rate for startups is usually about 50–70% don't survive the first 3 years. We have flipped that script because in our foundation, our entrepreneurs, we find a 60% survival rate. So entrepreneurs who go through our training program and who receive the seed capital funding of $5,000 from us, 60% of them not only survive but are thriving. We believe that capacity building and funding are two sides of the same coin, and that is why we bring the two. We don't want to just train them and tell them, well, good luck, go find your funding elsewhere. We will not also just give them the funding without training them. So we have found that our entrepreneurs have gone on to do amazing things. But bringing it to Nigeria, what I would say is that there's one simple thing government will do to support entrepreneurs, and that is to solve the issue of power. That is, for me, if you want to create 1 million jobs overnight, just solve the issue of electricity, because the greatest obstacle that entrepreneurs face is the huge power bills, not being able to really thrive in the real sector because they have to provide their own electricity. So that is the one thing we can do. Of course, there are many, but that is the major thing.
So if you take a beneficiary of the Tony Elumelu Foundation and a regular SME business, small business owner, what would you say? I mean, you say you have, 60% success rate. That is high, and
yes,
meaning that many of them were able to scale that dreaded second, third year in business. So what sets them apart? Because it's the same business environment, it's the same new electricity environment. So what is the secret?
What sets them apart is the fact that they have a support structure.
Okay.
So beyond the training program, after we give you the funding, we don't just say goodbye and good luck. We have a very strong alumni community. We have the largest digital online platform for African entrepreneurs called TEF Connect. It's www.tfconnect.com. And through this platform, we keep all our entrepreneurs visible. So with us, they have a platform through which they can continue to network with their colleagues all over Africa. We give them access to markets. So not just the visibility, but we also provide them with access to further investments from angel investors, venture capitalists, and all this is a structure we have provided to continue that support. So that is what I think is really sets Tony Elumelu entrepreneurs apart from their counterparts, because they continue to have a champion in the foundation who is all about growing their business. When they grow their business and they make a success of their business, we are successful.
Okay, let's talk about, you've just become CEO of the foundation, and you've said that you're going to build on, what the legacies of the previous CEO, but talk to us about your plans and your vision, going forward.
Okay, so like I said, in the 5 years that the program has been running, it was launched in 2015. So as at last year, we had trained 4,470 entrepreneurs, trained and funded. Okay. This year, we scaled. So usually we would select 1,000 every year.
Okay.
Last year, we had participation from the International Committee for the Red Cross and GIZ, the German Development Bank. And so we were able to select, fund, and train 1,470 last year. This year, we had participation from Africa Development Bank, the UNDP, as well as many other partners, and state governments in Nigeria, as well as 2 African countries. And we are training and funding this year 3,050 entrepreneurs. This means that after the training program, as long as they complete their business plans and meet the assessment criteria, they will all receive a total of $15 million. $5 million from the foundation and $10 million, just over $10 million from our partners. So for us, we see the impact that these 4,000 have made. Last year, Forbes magazine, they showcased 30 entrepreneurs under the age of 30 across Africa. 6 of them were Tony Elumelu entrepreneurs. Just this year, the Singaporean government signed a partnership with an entrepreneur for drone technology. That was a Tony Elumelu entrepreneur. He actually got a lifetime visa from Singaporean government. So we've seen that our entrepreneurs are going on to do amazing things, and this is just 4,000. Imagine what would happen if we had 1 million of those across Africa. Imagine the jobs that would be created. So that is our vision. Our vision is to really scale the program and to impact millions of Africans, because we know that once you have a strong and a thriving SME sector, job creation would be something that follows naturally.
Now, it's quite interesting that you mentioned that 3 state governments were part of it, part of this now, and you mentioned the likes of the Africa Development Bank. Obviously, they've seen the impact and they want to be a part of it. But from the government perspective, looking on and saying, oh, okay, this is what is happening, this model appears to be working, what can a government do on its own part to either tap into it, complement it, or maybe try to replicate it on, on in some other area, perhaps within its sphere or the private sector?
So like I always say, in the development world, there's no such thing as competition. Rather, it's collaboration. And what we need to do more in the development sector is to leverage each other's strengths. So like just setting the example of 2 African countries, the Republic of Benin and Botswana. So this year they said, you know what, you have been training and funding citizens of Benin, you've been training and funding citizens of Botswana, we want to do more. So how can we do that? So they approached us, and we now selected the number of entrepreneurs from their countries that they wanted to train. So for Benin Republic, they selected an additional 50 as a start. And so in total, we selected 100. We did 50, they did 50. And so for governments that want to really catalyze economic growth, the way to do that is to train and empower your young African entrepreneurs through a model like ours that will not just train and fund them, but will also support them and be vested in their success. Also, monitoring and evaluation is a critical aspect of the program, because you need to track the progress of the entrepreneurs. You need to track how many jobs they're creating, both direct and indirect.
You do all
under the program. Okay. All under the program. And so for governments, you're busy with the business of governing. Let us be busy with the business of empowering your entrepreneurs. Partner with the foundation, and we will do just that.
For someone who is because for maybe a government official who is watching this somewhere, thinking to himself, okay, I've seen similar foundations with similar structures, but what is it that the Tony Elumelu Foundation does? What is it within the chain of like monitoring and funding, hand-holding and all of that, would you say has proven to be the most effective? I know it's probably a combination of all, but is there anything within the structure that you would say has been the most effective so far?
I don't think you can have one without the other, like I've said. So the elements that we bring in that are key, the training. A lot of the entrepreneurs liken the training to a mini MBA, and they said that it completely changed their perspective and changed the way they do business and has been invaluable. We also have a mentoring program, because beyond the training, you need that one-on-one interaction with a business professional who's gone before you and done it before you. We have over 2,000 mentors scattered across the globe, and that is growing every day. Then we have obviously the funding, where they each get seed capital to be able to prove their concept and get their foot in the door. A lot of them are not would have ordinarily never been able to get that $5,000, be it from a bank or from friends or family. But with the foundation, they have that opportunity, and that we call it institutionalizing luck.
Thank you for your time. So far, we'll take a quick break. I'll pick up from where we left off. I've been speaking to Ifeyinwa Ogochukwu, CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, talking about, of course, youth employment on the continent. If you're just joining us, Ifeyinwa Ogochukwu, CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, is with me today. And we're exploring ways to drive the youth entrepreneurship agenda on the continent. Ifeyinwa, thank you for your time so far.
Thank you.
Let's talk about funding now. I mean, you're trying to scale, and obviously that is the way to go for better and for more impact. Now, but this foundation, the cash is capped at $100 million US dollars. I know you were head of partnerships before you became a CEO. So talk to us about the kind of partnerships that you're eyeing, that you see would be very much valuable in terms of helping you scale.
I think what we're doing is really working to change the African narrative. We have had billions of dollars in aid come to Africa over the last 2 or 3 decades, but we're not really seeing the impact of that aid. So it has to change. We have to look for a new way to engage. And the saying always goes, don't give a man fish, teach him how to fish. And that's exactly what we're about. So we're doing a lot of work with all the development finance institutions and the development organizations across Europe and the United States and Japan as well, to say, change the narrative, change the way you engage with Africa. Actually, next week, we have a convening in Brussels, and it's a convening hosted by the foundation called the Economic Transformation of Africa, a case study of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. And as you know, Brussels is the headquarters of the European Community. And so we have the major stakeholders who are involved in development, in the development agencies of the European communities. And they have been saying, listen, we need to engage better with the private sector in Africa. We need to ensure that the work that is being done in Africa will create economic opportunity in Africa, so that we stop the epidemic of young Africans risking their lives through illegal migration, looking for economic opportunity. And that is exactly the ethos of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. We are saying, let us create the economic opportunity right here in our continent, because we have huge human resources. We have, I always say that the problems of the continent, the infrastructure gaps, are actually business opportunities. Empower the entrepreneurs, give them the training, give them the funding, and they'll create businesses out of those problems.
Yes, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, there aren't too many, when I think about it, when I look across the philanthropy landscape, there aren't too many foundations that do what you do. Are you concerned that, because right now the clock is ticking and we have to move fast, are you concerned that Africa is a continent and we may miss that window of opportunity and just wake up one day and realize that it's 2050 and we weren't able to scale, we weren't able to, because, we need, obviously, more of this needs to be on the ground, working, scaling on a daily basis, but it doesn't appear to be happening at the moment. Do you have those concerns?
I do not have those concerns, and I'll tell you why. It is simply because of the fourth industrial revolution, the digital revolution. With technology, you can scale in a second. And that is the beauty of technology. So our program is completely carried and supported by technology. That's why we can train thousands, if not millions, simultaneously. So in terms of scaling, we can actually train and fund millions of Africans simultaneously. So I'm not worried. And I know that the world understands the huge opportunity that rests in Africa's youth. It also understands the huge risk. And now is the time to act. We are acting, and we're calling on all our development partners. We're calling on governments to act with us to ensure that Africa sees the economic transformation that it has the potential to see.
What more? I know you mentioned earlier that for the part of the government, what you want them to do is, for instance, fix some of the structural defects that we have. Power, for instance. But apart from infrastructure, what else on the part of the government would you like to see the government do? You talked about gaps between the private sector and government, but what else would you like the Nigerian government to do?
Well, I would like the African governments to be more collaborative. I would like the Nigerian government and the Ghanaian government, the Egyptian government to collaborate more and create less boundaries for entrepreneurs. Because one of the complaints we get from entrepreneurs is that within Africa, even something as simple as travel is difficult. Try getting from Lagos to Mali. It might take you 2 days, but you can get to anywhere in Europe or America in less than half a day. So we need to take down those barriers. We need to take down the boundaries. We need to create a free market within Africa. We need to also remove the currency barriers. You cannot buy anything from your neighbor right there in Ghana without changing money to dollars first. So what I would call on the African governments to do is to really create a single free market within Africa, because that will hugely boost the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Oh, well, good thing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is on the way, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that
they will implement. Yes.
Cross that hurdle. I know that for the foundation, you're looking to see these SMEs transform into international growth companies, and those companies into African multinationals. I know it's just been 5 years, and the picture is still looking good for those that you have trained and put out there. But are you confident that they can actually one day, or are there a couple of them that you're keeping your eye on, that you know that these ones definitely are going to become African multinationals?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Our goal is to take entrepreneurs from being startups to IPOs. And we are one of the only ones in Africa working at the bottom of the pyramid. So what we're doing is that at the bottom of the pyramid, that is where you have majority of young African entrepreneurs, and no one is really giving them that opportunity, like I said, institutionalizing luck or democratizing opportunity. So we are pulling them up from the bottom of the pyramid, giving them the funding and the training that they need to begin the entrepreneurial journey. And as they work their way up to the middle or the top of the pyramid, we expect other ecosystem players, investors, angel investors, venture capitalists to now invest in them. But the problem is, if no one is working at the bottom of the pyramid, they keep recycling the same entrepreneurs. So we want to see more people have visibility and access to the finance that is actually actually available. It's just entrepreneurs do not know how to access it. And that is the gap that we are bridging in the foundation.
Are there particular sectors, entrepreneurs that are doing great things, the way you see innovation, that are good at, the innovation that they're working with in particular sectors, perhaps ICT, or it doesn't matter to the foundation, whatever sector, you're seeing that, fantastic idea or innovation, you're going with it?
Totally. We are sector agnostic, but we are so proud to say that the largest sector is agriculture, with 30% participation, which is amazing to now see that young people are increasingly turning to agriculture as a trendy business that will actually create wealth. And of course, leveraging technology. We find that ICT is something that is applying across board. All our entrepreneurs know that if you want to scale, if you want to disrupt, if you want to really be sustainable and profitable, you must leverage technology. And we're seeing that increasingly.
Okay, I think we have about 5 minutes left now. Talk to us about the goals. I know it's still new, 2 or 3 days into the office. Are there goals you've set for yourself that you're going to look back perhaps 5 years or, X number of years from here now and say, yes, those are the goals and targets I set for myself for the foundation to take it to ABC, and this is what I've been able to do?
Again, like you said, it's too soon for me to start talking about the plans we have within the foundation, but just know this, that the foundation intends to change the history of Africa. We intend to create history by ensuring that we catalyze massive economic growth. And the way to do that is to prioritize the empowerment of entrepreneurs across all 54 African countries. And we intend to do that on a massive scale. So watch that space.
But what would you say have been some of the biggest barriers for the foundation? Either working with the beneficiaries, alumni, or partners, et cetera?
I wouldn't call it barriers, because we do not see obstacles, we see opportunities. Okay. So like in anything that you're doing, I think that the first step was to entrench the program and to make sure that it worked. So we had to leverage technology. Initially, when we started the program, people in the industry said, oh my gosh, you want to train 10,000 people? Where are you going to find them? It's impossible. But in the first year, we got 20,000 applications to the program. Fast forward 5 years later, this year, we got 216,000 applications to the program. So for us, our greatest pain point is the fact that out of 216,000, our commitment is to do 1,000 a year. So we need to scale the numbers. We need to be able to select half of those numbers, if not all, because this opportunity is something every African needs. And we believe that through entrepreneurship, we can alleviate poverty permanently and solve all the problems on the continent.
I know that, like you just said, you received thousands of applications, but when you look across those applications and just the very potential, how would you describe, perhaps in percentage terms, those ones that come forward as really incredible ideas? And I suspect you probably picked the very best of the lot, obviously. But in terms of just looking at the quality of the innovation and ideas that you see presented before you, what can you say about that?
What we like to say is that, some people are great at putting down their ideas on paper. Others may not be so creative. So yes, of course, there'll be 10, 20% that are great ideas. But we find that by the time they have gone through the training program and the mentoring program, those ones that you thought were not so great may now end up to be fantastic. So we don't really like to judge off the face of just a piece of paper, because that for us should get your foot in the door. But in terms of high performers, the high performers are those with grit, the high performers are those with passion, the high performers are those who stay the course. So what we like to tell entrepreneurs is never give up. That is the one trait of an entrepreneur, because the only thing that separates a success from a failure is that one stopped, the other continued.
What kind of feedback do you get from those who've gone through your program that you still support in terms of, on the field, working on the field with all the training and all the support they've been given, and how they're able to maneuver the business environment?
Yeah. It's amazing when you hear their testimonials. Sometimes I feel I want to be walking around at interviews like this to have them right here with me, because there's nothing like hearing it from the horse's mouth. One of the recent encounters I had was just last Friday, one of our entrepreneurs, and she just told a story that, listen, she said her father was a successful businessman, but he died when she was 16. And that what she realized just recently is that everything her father would have done for her, the foundation, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, has done for her. We have given her training, We have given her funding. We have given her a platform. We've given her access to a network of investors and value-added opportunities from other partners, and we continue to be there to support her, to cheer her on, and to see her business grow. She owns a coffee company, one of the few indigenous coffee growing and coffee producing companies in Nigeria. So that warms our hearts, and that is the reason why we do what we do.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Ifeyinwa, for talking to us today. And of course, we wish you all the best in your new role as CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. Thank you for being on the show today. I've been speaking to Ifeyinwa Ogochukwu. She's the CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. Well, that's it on Beyond Markets. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Remember, you can watch Beyond Markets at 5 p.m. West African time every day and have access to all previous episodes of Beyond Markets on our website at cnbcafrica.com and on YouTube. Do stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets. We'd love to get your input on our discussions. You can also follow me on @Esther or Awoniyi. For myself and the team, it's bye for now.